Israel hints it may not engage Biden on Iran nuclear strategy. Israel held out the possibility on Tuesday that it would not engage with U.S. President Joe Biden on strategy regarding the Iranian nuclear program, urging tougher sanctions and a credible military threat against its arch-enemy. The remarks by Israel's envoy to Washington came at a touchy juncture for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Up for re-election next month, he has revived his hard line on Iran while not yet having any direct communication with Biden. The new administration has said it wants a U.S. return to a 2015 nuclear deal with Tehran, which former President Donald Trump quit, restoring sanctions, if the Iranians recommit to their own obligations. Washington has also said it wants to confer with allies in the Middle East about such moves. "We will not be able to be part of such a process if the new administration returns to that deal," Ambassador Gilad Erdan told Israel's Army Radio. Netanyahu aides have privately questioned whether engaging with U.S. counterparts might backfire, for Israel, by falsely signaling its consent for any new deal that it still opposes. Israel was not a party to the 2015 deal. It has powerful advocates within the U.S. Congress, however, and Netanyahu's threats to take unilateral military action on Iran if he deems diplomacy a dead end also figure into big power planning. "We think that if the United States returns to the same accord that it already withdrew from, all its leverage will be lost," Erdan said. It would appear that only crippling sanctions, keeping the current sanctions and even adding new sanctions, combined with a credible military threat that Iran fears, might bring Iran to real negotiations with Western countries that might ultimately produce a deal truly capable of preventing it breaking ahead to nuclear arms. The Biden administration has said it wants to strengthen and lengthen constraints on Iran, which denies seeking the bomb. In related news, Netanyahu to be first Middle Eastern leader to receive Biden's phone call, White House says. Phone conversation between the two leaders to take place soon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will be the first Middle Eastern leader to receive a phone call from U.S. President Joe Biden, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki declared on Tuesday. The conversation is expected to take place soon, she added during her press briefing. Psaki also addressed the new administration's relations with Saudi Arabia, saying that those will likely see some shifts. Instead of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who fostered close ties with former President Donald Trump and his son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner, Biden plans to communicate more with Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz, Psaki said. The shift could have some impact on Israel as well, with the king seen as more pro-Palestinian, while the crown prince was reportedly more open to forging ties with Israel without solving the Palestinian question first. After taking over the White House, Biden phoned the leaders of America's neighbors, as well as its key European and Asian allies and rivals, while a call to the Israeli leader was notably absent. Both the US and Israel sought to downplay the fact, rejecting the media speculations it indicated a cooling in the ties between the two countries. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell so you can get notified whenever new Bible prophecy news videos are uploaded. Saudi Arabia says regional states must be part of Iran nuclear talks. The Saudi government has called for regional countries to be part of any negotiations over Iran's nuclear program, demanding that the international community confront what it called Tehran's aggression. In a lengthy statement released after a virtual cabinet meeting headed by King Salman on Tuesday, Riyadh also condemned Yemen's Houthi rebels and welcomed Washington's commitment to the kingdom's security. However, it failed to comment on the U.S. decision to end logistics support for the Saudi-led coalition's war in Yemen. The cabinet renewed the kingdom's demand for the international community to shoulder its responsibility towards the aggressive practices of the Iranian regime, including threatening the security and stability of Arab states and interfering in their affairs and supporting armed groups, the statement, published by official Saudi press agency SPA, said. And it stresses the importance that the countries most affected by Iranian threats must be a party to any international negotiations about Iran's nuclear program and behaviors that threaten the security of the region. The statement comes weeks into the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden, who had vowed to revive the Iran nuclear deal that was nixed by his predecessor, Donald Trump. The multilateral agreement, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action (JCPOA), saw Iran scale back its nuclear program in exchange for lifting sanctions against its economy. In response to Trump's maximum pressure campaign of sanctions, Iran had started loosening commitment to the pact by enriching uranium beyond the restrictions set by the JCPOA. Washington and Tehran are currently at an impasse, with each side requesting that the other returns to compliance with the deal first. But prospects of reviving the deal were boosted by the appointment of Rob Malley, a proponent of diplomacy, as U.S. envoy for Iran. The JCPOA was negotiated in 2015 by a group of countries known as the P5+1, the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, the US, UK, France, China and Russia, plus Germany. Iranian officials have ruled out adding more participants to the deal or expanding its scope to address Tehran's regional activity or ballistic missile program. Is the United States prepared to stop selling arms to our region if it wants to talk about our defense? We spend a seventh of Saudi Arabia on defense with 2.5 times its population, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif told CNN last week. Zarif also pointed to the Saudi role in the war in Yemen, which has killed more than 100,000 people and driven the impoverished country to the verge of famine in what the UN calls the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Yemen war. Earlier this month, Biden announced an end to U.S. assistance to the kingdom's war effort, proclaiming that the conflict has to end. On Tuesday, Riyadh welcomed diplomatic efforts to end the war, but ignored the American announcement, except for the part where Biden said Washington remains committed to protecting the kingdom's sovereignty from outside attacks. Saudi Arabia and its regional allies, namely the United Arab Emirates, have been conducting a bombing campaign in Yemen since 2015 against the country's Houthi rebels to restore the government of President Abd Rabbuh Mansur Hadi. Riyadh views the Houthis as Iran proxies, but the rebels deny receiving material support from Tehran. On Tuesday, Riyadh lashed out at the Houthis. The cabinet stressed that it rejects what the Iran-backed Houthi militia represents as a threat to the security and stability in Yemen, and the aggression that it has been carrying through repeated assaults with rockets and drones that target populated civilian areas, airports, ports and civilian infrastructure in the kingdom, the statement said. All this Jesuit theater will lead to an orchestrated conflict between Israel and Saudi Arabia and Iran. The stage is just being set by Jesuit Joe Biden and Jesuit Benjamin Netanyahu, for the Prince of the Covenant, MBS. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And stay tuned to Watchman Report for more Bible prophecy news. To learn how to receive forgiveness of sins and get your name in the Book of Life, visit beingjustified.com today. Behold, now is the accepted time, behold, now is the day of salvation. Tomorrow is not promised, make sure your eternal soul is being justified.